Welcome everyone to Domestic Violence Wears Many Tags Classroom. We are going to discuss today the 5 tags of domestic violence. We are also going to chime into the abuser side education, the warning signs of an abusive personality, male and female perspective. The abuser side education is what we're going to talk about in the classroom. There are 11 warning signs of an abusive personality, but today I'm going to talk about 3 of them. Victims often ask, how did I end up in this relationship? Grooming. This is when the abuser will start to listen to you, subscribe to your emotional pain, pretend to give you good advice, pretend to care about your struggles, and the abuser may tap into some type of relatable piece as it pertains to your story. So that means that they identify with your trauma. Sometimes they'll often say, oh, I have the same trauma. And for whatever reason, the victim feels an attachment. Could feel like this is the first time I really feel like somebody understands me. Okay? By the abuser saying that they may have the same story as yourself. Okay? Grooming is when the abuser is doing their best listening. The abuser can listen, I mean listen at 100%, about what's wrong with a potential victim or the backdrop of that victim's story. So if the victim grew up and didn't have a mother, did not have a father, that is bait for the abuser. Any type of, the tags that we talk about, verbal abuse, emotional abuse that they may have experienced in childhood, adolescence, they talk about that with the abuser. That's bait for the abuser. When you start talking about your backdrop of your trauma, the abuser 9 times out of 10 will begin to come for your mind. It is at that moment that they know that they can get you. The other thing about that is, so students will often say, well, what do they see? How are they, what are they basing this on? The abuser, sometimes it could be a specific type of victim, potential victim, but then sometimes it may not be a specific type, all right? And by that I mean, she could be, or he could be a professional, a police officer, a judge, a doctor, and still be in a position where they're being groomed, and they're being taken advantage of. So it doesn't matter about your profession or your money, right? If the abuser has time and they see you as a potential victim, they'll chime into that, right? Because some people say, isn't it a challenge to try to, break down somebody with a lot of money? No, it's not. Not for the abuser, no, it's not. All right? So you gotta be careful of the things that we say to someone, because 9 times out of 10, it can make you a victim of domestic violence, okay? Number 2 is going to be the unrealistic expectations. The requests that abusers ask of victims. Oftentimes they rely on victims for emotional support, financial support, spiritual support. And the victim may not have that to give. That is something that you should come into the relationship with. You should have that support system so that you won't be potentially experiencing unrealistic expectations. Okay. Let's say, for example, the abuser is working or whatever. You decide to cook, and you cook shrimp. The abuser will come in there and throw that food on the floor or throw it in the trash can and then ask you to make something else. I didn't want that. Who told you to cook that? I didn't want that. So now the victim got to try to go over across town to get a steak because the abuser wants a steak. Okay? When he or she could have just said a couple of hours ago, I want shrimp. Okay? And he or she is flying over the earth to try to get the steak that the abuser wants. That's an unrealistic expectation, especially if you have children. You can't just drop everything you're doing and meet the needs of your abuser. But guess what? You have to. Because if you don't, it can cause the victim, cause a lot of harm. All right? So victims are pressured to do things that are unrealistic, right? You have some abusers who pimp victims out. I didn't come in a relationship with that. I thought we was going to be healthy in this relationship because you was listening to me. You heard me. You know my story. But the abuser can say, you've been sexually abused. Why not put some money with it? How unrealistic is. So now you somewhere, stripping, and that could be a male or female. All right. Because you're trying to meet these unrealistic expectations that the abuser has put on you, okay? Think about how far, some victims have to go. A victim could have been pregnant, just had a baby. And next thing you know, she wondering why, she got to hurry up and get well and all these things because the abuser want her to sacrifice, and have sexual activity. And she could have just had a baby. But that's an unrealistic expectation for that victim to do. And when they try to stand up for themselves, it can cost them. What stamps 1 and 2 when we're talking about the education of domestic violence? How does these two come to fruition? Quick involvement. Premature sex can nail down 1 and 2. When you have premature sex with the abuser, it will nail in 1 and 2. And remember, it's 11 warning signs. I'm only talking about 3. But like Biggie Small says, the last commandment should be the first one. Okay? This is the last commandment. All right? And it should be the first one. All right? But this is the one where that abuser knows that you should not have had premature sex with them. They know this. But they make it feel like, oh, I'm with you, we together, I'm gonna be by your side. Then they start asking you to drive your car to work every day while you get on the bus or you catch the subway. This is going to link back to this a lot of times. Premature sex. Victims, potential victims, have to be careful, with this here, because it can definitely stain 1 and 2. All right, so trauma bonding, the abuser side education, the warning sign of an abusive personality, trauma bonding is real. So there is 100 dating questions, right? That has nothing to do with your trauma. that we need to start using when we're talking about dating someone. All right, now if it's a one-night stand, you need to treat it like that. Okay, you never talk to the person again. But there's a lot of people who make those one-night stands a relationship. And it ends up here and here. Okay, so you have to be very careful when you are indulging with someone that you're supposed to be dating or someone that you're coming out to date. You cannot disclose. I don't recommend you disclose your traumatic experiences. Are there any questions out there? Questions or comments about the abusive side? No questions or comments? All right. We're going to end it here. Quick involvement should be first.